Okay, here we go. Today's mini lecture is about the editing process. So we have our essay here. I finished writing my complete essay, um, and I've let it soak for 48 hours. So now we're going to go through the process of trying to cut the essay down because, as we remember, I'm at about 1,230 words, something like that, and we're trying to get it down to about 900. 990 is our max. So very first thing you want to do whenever you're working with this type of process is you need to make a copy of your work. Um, you want to keep the original first draft of your essay uh, unchanged, and we usually title it Draft 1. So the reason for that is so that if you need to, you can always go back and look at the changes, look at what you had originally. Sometimes the editing process, you might want to go back to an original sentence before you changed it. So it's good to have the original copy ready to rock and roll. So then we retitle our second version, and we'll retitle it Draft 2. Okay, here we go. So in the editing process, our goal is to simplify. Our goal is to make sure that we don't have any repetitive phrasing. So let's just, we can actually say, if we were to put this over here, goals of the editing process. Number 1, simplify. Number 2, remove any repetitive phrasing or wording. Number 3, fix any grammar errors that you notice. Number 4, make sure you honor your purpose. And number 5, maybe we'll say make sure that you honor your purpose. And number 5, polish the citations and APA format. So as we know, APA calls for the document to be double spaced. We want 1-inch margins. We need our citations to look a certain way. And as we're going, we will check all of that. So we've got our goals ready to go. And let's move into the main process here. So the phoenix burst into flames, but from the fiery ashes awoke the new version of the young man. In Quello's Alchemist, Santiago must overcome a host of challenges as he travels towards his goal, but that is veiled behind the worldly distraction of his treasure. He will have to become the phoenix and transcend the gold he thinks he seeks to find. So this is repetitive wording, the value. Buried within himself if he wants to reach the actual peak, if he wants to reach his highest peak. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm simplifying. I'm removing things that are wordy, and I'm tightening up the phrasing, and ultimately it'll make the essay read as a stronger and more cohesive work. So we're just going to keep pushing on. Santiago's journey tests his character and ultimately forces him to transform. So we've got transcend, we've got change right up in the front here, challenge, we've got he will become, transcend. Okay, so transform is fine because it's not repetitive. So Santiago's journey ultimately tests his character, and we can remove ultimately, and forces him to transform in order to achieve. So to achieve his personal level legend. Moreover, his progress to realization can be tracked through character development omens and the theme of achieving potential. Good. So now we're into our first main body paragraph, and as we do this work, we can make sure we can remove that little notation of MBP1. So here we go, moving into main body paragraph 1. Santiago grows and develops. So that's 2 words, right? We don't need 2 verbs to explain it, so we can simplify it down to 1. The course of the alchemist. At the beginning of the story, Santiago is already shown to be a brave person who has moved away from a traditional path. This is demonstrated by the fact that he did not follow the path, did not follow his family's good. Keep moving here. Moreover, Santiago is ready to continue growing. So we've got, is it growing at first, develops, continue. So let's just, again, this is a double verb, right? So we can remove one of them, growing and learning. We shorten it down just to learning. So anytime you're trying to cut words, if you've got double verbs like that, compounded verbs like that, you can just remove one of the 2 of them, right? Is ready for change. Good. Our citation, we've got the author's name, date of publication, and remember, when you're doing citations, we do not want PG dot. That's not appropriate for APA. We just want P dot, just like this, okay? So that's just a quick reminder. He is a thinking character and has the courage to go after what he wants. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. Additionally, he is not narrow-minded. He is ready to learn new things and shift his life to follow the adventures that are presented. To follow, so we can simplify this to follow life's adventures, and then we can remove this additional that clause at the end of the sentence there. So you can see I just saved like 7 or 8 words right there. However, even though he is brave and willing to change, he is not yet savvy in reading people. This is demonstrated by the fact that he cannot read the true intentions of the thief when he arrives in Tangiers, Morocco. So we can remove Morocco, we don't need that, it's additional, right? And then let's look at this phrasing here. This is demonstrated by the fact that he cannot read the true intentions of the thief when he arrives in Tangiers. Okay, so let's see here, how can we simplify that? That he because we already mentioned about reading people above, so saying that he cannot read the thief is, again, it's a little bit repetitive, and my guess is we can tighten this idea up, still get the same concept, but just tighten up the amount of words that we're using. That he is tricked by the thief when he arrives in Tangier. There we go, so that simplified it up, we saved some words there. In fact, Santiago is suspicious of the bar owner, and he ultimately, why am I using ultimately all the time? I don't like that. Let's get that out of there. And so here I'm going to remove the comma and the subject from clause 2. I just saved a word there. And because we know now that this coordinating conjunction is joining the verbs together, we don't need the comma or the subject in clause 2. We don't really need to know that the thief speaks Spanish. That doesn't really aid anything or to add anything. Okay, so let's keep going. This shows that Santiago, although eager and brave, so we can remove and brave. We've mentioned he's brave before, is lacking in worldly experience, and thus has a hard time reading other people. So again, we've talked about reading. We did change it once. We changed it here to tricked. So let's see if we can simplify this. This shows that Santiago, all those eagers lacked in worlds. Okay, so I think we're just going to remove this clause here, right? Good. But he soon learns a harsh lesson from having his money stolen. Okay, so that's the main idea there. So as long as we have captured the main content idea, we can remove some of those additional clauses. They're just adding extra words without really hammering the point that we want. So this is the hard decision making component that the writer has to go through as they edit. So let's keep pushing on here. It is through his loss and the despair he feels that Santiago was forced to slow down and start listening to the ebb and flow of life. Okay, good. That's essential to our analysis here. Now we're moving into the next point. So this is a transitional sentence here. Once he is stuck in Tangier, once he is stuck, we can remove the in Tangier. We know he's stuck, right? He begins listening to his gut. He takes a job in the crystal shop, and through his experiences there, he starts listening to the intuition within him. So again, we can probably remove this clause right here. Good. First he sees, first, comma, so that's one of those, this is a transitional cue. So if we're gonna use it to set up a list of different things, we want the comma there before the noun. That's just an organizational transitional strategy. Display case is needed, but later he also notices that customers are thirsty from walking up the hill to the shop. Coelho 2014 stated that the boy could now speak Arabic, and he understood the workings of the shop and the crystal itself. There's our page number. Good. Although he thought he had been forced off his path by the thief. Okay, again. Do we need to mention that it was the thief who forced him off the path? That's the thing. Well, let's leave it for now. But what I'll do is highlight this little 3-word phrase here, because if it turns out that we do need to remove additional words, we can come back. So that's like almost like a tier 2 way of indicating ideas that I think, hey, I can maybe remove this, but for now I'm going to leave it, but I've marked it off so that if I do need more words, I can come back and just chop those right out of there. He has learned to listen to the flow of life, and this skill will be valuable in the next step of his journey. Good. So now I'm kind of summarizing, which is something that's always a good idea to do at the end of your main body paragraphs. And then we're assuming this next sentence is going to project forward to our second idea, our second main body paragraph idea. However, he will also need to utilize his new vision to interpret the omens correctly if he is to